Thanks everyone for coming today. Hopefully I'll do a good job. I can talk about beer all day. I do tons of talks with wholesalers and customers about beer styles and beer, but I don't talk about the business too much, so this is kind of new to me. And I was actually talking to someone this morning. They said, geez, this is my first attendance of Eggs and Issues, and I said, it's my first too, so I'm unfamiliar with how this works, but we'll try this. I'm going to quickly go through the history of Allagash, just show you a couple pictures of the early brewery, and then talk about our core values, which we're really focusing on a lot lately, and then just quickly talk about some of the things that we're focusing on recently as we go through a pretty major period of growth. Going back, you heard a little bit of the history of the brewery. I started the brewery actually in '94. It was a year before we brewed, but I spent about a year cobbling the brewery together. This is a picture of our original brew house. That kind of dented, beat-up tank is an old dairy tank. That gray tank's an old dairy tank. So we used a lot of old dairy equipment. We used some new equipment, but not much. So it was a pretty Spartan system, and it took about a year to assemble it. Did a lot of plumbing, welding, electrical. I really enjoy that type of work. And then for the first year, I basically brewed alone at the brewery, did the brewing, kegging, loaded the trucks. So that's a picture of me early on before I got a haircut, brewing a batch of beer. We pretty slowly grew for the first 10 years. As Mike mentioned, we've always focused on Belgian-style beer. And when I started actually selling beer 17 years ago, very few people in the country were familiar with Belgian-style beers, and fewer people were drinking it. They're very unique beers, and if any of you have had the Allagash White, you can see that it's unfiltered, it's cloudy. Those weren't common 15 years ago. And we ferment it with a Belgian yeast strain, and we spice it, so it's a pretty unique beer. And I used to walk into accounts back then and pour people a sample, and the first thing they said is, what's wrong with it? You know, why does it look weird? Why does it taste weird? D.L. Geary is a good friend of mine. He used to always give me a hard time with the cloudiness of the beer and say, you know, I can fix that. So the first 10 years, these are some images of the brewery. Pretty slow growth. After 10 years, I think we'd worked our way up to 6 or 7 employees. And it was just a long period of educating, introducing people to the beer, spending time on the road, explaining the beer to people, doing beer dinners and events, and spending time educating distributors. So, images of the brewery. After 12 years, Mike mentioned, we were able to build our new facility. This is a picture of the facility when we opened it up in '07. This was kind of phase 1. I think at that point we had 10 or 12 employees. And this is just a graph of our growth. And you can see for the first 10 or so years, we didn't have a whole lot of growth. We grew from about 120 barrels to 4,000 barrels. We were doing everything we could to sell beer. We opened up distribution all over the country. We were a mile wide and an inch deep just to sell enough beer to stay in business, and I'll address that, kind of how we've approached that lately, a little later in the talk. But one of the things we noticed by the time we got to around '08, 4 or so years ago, we saw that if we were going to continue this 40% growth, which we were all of a sudden starting to see, that we'd have a lot of challenges with our employees, making sure everyone was on the same page with kind of our mission and core values and why we go to work each day. And I'll talk about our core values in a little bit. But you can see especially over the last few years, we've added quite a few employees. So I'll show you a few images of what the brewery looks like now. This is an angle of the brewery that doesn't show a fairly recent addition, and we're actually just started about 2 weeks ago our biggest expansion that we've ever done. This is Ian, one of our brewers, standing in front of that original dented tank which I showed, so we're still using a lot of this new equipment. We're about to install in about 6 months a new brew house and replace this old 30-barrel brew house. We'll actually supplement it. We'll keep the old brew house. So some of the images of life now at the brewery. So I'm going back to this slide just to point out our recent growth. As I mentioned, in '08, we really saw that if this growth continued, we'd maybe be in a situation where we had a second shift or even an overnight shift. employees maybe down south selling beer as representatives, which has recently become the case. We have a rep down south. We're adding a rep out in California. We thought a real big challenge to us would be communicating to everyone kind of what the core values of this company were, our purpose, why we go to work each day, what we're trying to accomplish. And it was easy for the first 10 years because we were doing everything together. We all showed up at work at the same time. We were all working together on the bottling line. And even if we didn't know it, just in 10 hours of conversation on the bottling line, we were touching on our core values constantly. We were attending events together, having a beer after work together. So this is something that became a big focus of mine and at the company about 4 or so years ago. So we set out to put down in black and white on paper what our purpose and core values were and really focus on trying to communicate that to the whole crew and instill that in the whole crew. And I'll go over these values. And we've also posted these all over the brewery, and we're continuing to work on that to remind everyone constantly. I've got it on my desktop on my computer. I try to remind myself all the time, and we all remind each other. So our purpose, handcrafting the best Belgian-inspired beers in the world. As simple as that sounds, we have a lot of different roles in the brewery. Not everyone, like in the old days, is actually brewing beer. So we have people in accounts receivable and accounts payable. We have sales reps on the road. We have people driving forklifts, moving material in our distribution center, which is 1.5 miles or so away. We're all coming to work for the same reason. It doesn't matter what your role is. Our goal is to get people the best Belgian-style beers in the world, and everyone needs to understand that we're all there for the same reason with this goal. Our values, this is a list of our core values. Innovation, this has always been very important to us for a couple reasons. Number one, it inspires us to be able to go to work each day and create new beers and give people new flavor and aroma experiences with our beers, kind of creating new styles constantly, giving people new experiences, pairing food and beer. And also, another important part of this is we learn as we're innovative. As our brewers are out there creating new styles, they're learning more about brewing beer. Growth, and this is growth in all aspects. I'll talk about volume in a little bit, but we really want to grow in all these different areas of our core values. And a lot of good comes with growth. I get asked a lot, geez, as you grow, is your quality going to go down? And the answer is absolutely not. Our quality is going up as we grow. I think the important thing is just to have the right culture and have the right approach to growth and continue to use that growth as an opportunity to invest in better equipment, better quality control, better human resources. So we take advantage of our growth, and each year as we add volume, which isn't a focus for us in and of itself, we're trying to grow the company in all respects. Family, very important at the brewery. I love my job. I don't like to get out of bed any more than the next person, but when I do get out of bed, I'm excited to get into work. And one of the main reasons for that is we have a great crew at the brewery. I'll mention at the end, come visit us. But you can see it when you walk through the brewery. It's just a great, passionate, engaged crowd, and I love spending time with everyone at the brewery. I get excited to go into work each day, largely just to spend time with the crew there. It's a lot of fun. Passion, loving beer, doing what we love. I don't think we have one employee at the company that shows up, punches in, does the minimum, and leaves at the end of the day. These are people that are continually engaged and passionate about what they do. And it doesn't matter what they do, they're constantly thinking, how can I make things better here? How can I do my job better? How can we improve this process? And I'm not the reason the company has been growing so much and been successful with growth. It's the 53 people at the company who are extremely passionate and really trying to make Allagash a better place every day. And finally, caring. From a number of standpoints. From a community standpoint, this community has always been very supportive of us. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for this Portland community. So we didn't have a whole lot of resources to give back our first 10 or 12 years, but now that we do, we're trying to give back to the community. And that also means from perspectives like an environmental sustainability standpoint, we're trying to do everything we can to be as sustainable as possible. Just going back through, again, some of these core values, innovation. Mike mentioned the spontaneous beers. We're the first brewery outside of Belgium that's experimenting with beer that we don't add yeast to. The yeast is just naturally added by the ambient air in oak barrels that we use in the brewery. That's been a lot of fun. We've actually been invited to special brew fests in Belgium that just have these traditional Belgian-style spontaneous beers. And we've been having a barrel program at the brewery for probably 12, 15 years, and that's expanded to the point now where we're aging beer in probably about 600 oak barrels. We were one of the first breweries in the country to do a lot of experimentation with oak barrels. We also have a program at the brewery where anyone, regardless of your position, whether you're in the distribution warehouse or in the office or a sales rep, someone on the bottling line, or even the brewmaster, if you have an idea for a beer that can be scaled up potentially, you can talk to Jason Perkins, our brewmaster, and brew that beer on a little 10-gallon system. So that gets everyone in the company engaged in actually making beer regardless of what they do at the company. And this is Emily, who works in our office brewing a batch of beer. I forget what she was brewing there, but she looks like she's having fun. And we try to run that system as much as possible, maybe every 2 weeks. Quality, as we grow, I'm never content if we get our quality to a certain point and maintain it. If we do that, someone else is going to come along and do a better job than we're doing. So we're continually investing in quality and actually trying to improve our QC, early detection of issues, and our consistency in the brewery. There's Matt Edwards, one of our brewers, taking a sample of beer. So we have 2 full-time lab employees, and we're actually hiring a 3rd. If there's any microbiologists in here, come talk to me, because we have a job opening. Growth, this is our new bottling line being installed, this is about 4 months ago. We spent about a week or so installing a new higher speed bottling line than what we had been living with for 12 or so years. Again, giving us the opportunity to put much higher quality beer in the package. It's a state-of-the-art system. And I also thought I'd mention one of the great programs, and anyone that's in manufacturing probably knows this, that's available now, especially because the economy isn't so good, is the accelerated depreciation programs. So we have the opportunity now, any equipment we put in 2011, instead of writing that down over 7 years, taking the expense over an extended period, we were able to write it off in year 1. And because of that, we actually accelerated a lot of our capital expenditures and expansions. And this is a picture of our new tank farm, which we actually probably did a year before we normally would have done, because we were able to write it off and preserve more cash in the business. And that just means more jobs. It means more jobs for the people manufacturing these tanks, which are domestically made, more jobs for the truckers, the riggers, and the people who are installing them. So that accelerated depreciation is a great program. I mentioned family. We have an amazing crew at the brewery. I love spending time with everyone. We do a lot of fun events, and I think these events are extremely important. This is our annual holiday party. Everyone at the company builds a Pinewood Derby car, and we race them after our all-company meeting, and it's a blast. We all have beers together and race the Pinewood Derby cars. You can see Bob won this year. He gets the Budweiser. We have a Budweiser racing jacket that someone, I don't know if you want to say gets to wear or has to wear, but he hangs that in his office now. Passion, this is Jill, who runs our retail store. I was talking with Ron McClay, who's a good buddy of mine, food and beverage manager here, and we were talking about winery tours and brewery tours, and he said, one of the most important things when you take a tour, and something you can really see, is the passion of the staff. And I think when you come out and visit our brewery, you can just see everyone has a lot of passion at the brewery. Jill definitely does. She runs our tour in retail and does a great job with that. Caring, a couple pictures of some environmental sustainability projects. That's Norm with the hat, Justice Farm. We send him all of our spent grain and spent hops and a number of other materials, which we usually put down the drain in the process, but we spend a little bit of extra money recovering those and selling or giving them away as resources rather than dumping them down the drain. We try to be on the cutting edge with effluent treatment that we send to the sewer department. And there's another picture, actually Deirdre's here, from Maine Medical Center. We established a scholarship fund for pediatric nurses at Maine Medical Center. So just a quick review of our contributions. We're real proud of these at the brewery. We weren't able to give much back to the community for the first 12 years because we really weren't making any money. We're profitable now, and we're able to do that. We really try to give back and make a difference in the community. This year so far, we've given back almost $100,000. And then over the years since '06, which is about when we were able to give back, we've established a number of programs. One of them is our tribute series of beer. Victoria Ale donates $1 a bottle to Victoria Mansion, which is a very important historic site in town. I'm also on the board of that. By the way, if no one's been to Victoria Mansion, it's a great tour, very, very interesting museum in town. The St. Lawrence Arts Center up on Congress Street, they do a lot of local theater and events. MOFGA, Maine Organic Farmers and Gardeners, our beer Hume Alone, we donate $1 a bottle for that. And as I mentioned, we do a beer called Fluxus, which we raise $1 a bottle for a scholarship fund for pediatric nurses. And Friends of Casco Bay, and of course Portland Trails, we've recently started an affiliation with. So since we started doing this, we'll be up to close to $250,000 by the end of this year. This is not a political statement in any way, but I thought it would be fun just to show. We've had a number of recent visitors to the brewery. We also had Shelley Pingree, and the governor came by the brewery, but we had a visit from Senator Collins, which was a lot of fun. She met a bunch of people at the brewery. Not telling you how to vote. We love it when independents, Democrats, and Republicans drink our beer. So we don't endorse any party or want to offend anyone. So. And we also had a recent visit. It's been fun that we get a lot of cool people through now, and it's fun for the crew. Nice recognition for the job they're doing. We had Jim Cantori and Stephanie Abrams through the brewery, which I was unfortunately out of town for. Bringing people into our brewery is extremely important. We were ranked #1 locally by TripAdvisor. We were actually ranked the #2 brewery in the country to come visit, which we're real proud of. These are some pictures of our retail store, which is actually going to be updated in about 6 months with our expansion. We'll get almost 20,000. This is a rare tour. I decided to do a tour this day, so they took a picture of me doing the tour. It was fun. We'll get almost 20,000 people through the brewery this year. To us, it's extremely important getting people through. There's a lot of competition now in the industry, especially competition from the two big brewers, Anheuser-Busch InBev and SAB Miller Coors. They have brands like Blue Moon, that's made by Coors, that for a 6-pack you can buy for $7 or $8, and when that's right next to our 4-pack, which costs us a lot to make at $9 a 4-pack, it's tough for people to see the value in that. If they haven't been to the brewery or if they haven't tried the beer. And if we can get people through the brewery and if people can see the passion that our crew has, it immediately justifies the value in that 4-pack. And we think if people have been through the brewery, they don't really even look at the price of the beer because they see a tremendous amount of value there. So I'll try to get through these last few slides because I know I'm running out of time a little bit. But in terms of strategically going forward, some of the things we're working on, as I mentioned, the first 10 or 12 years we were in business, we really couldn't give the beer away. And just to survive, I went out and tried to open up as many markets as I could all over the country. We ended up basically a mile wide and an inch deep. And we really weren't managing these territories well. We didn't have sales reps in the territories. We had 44 wholesalers over a huge area. And at this point, in this snapshot in time, it was '06, and we were doing about 6,000 barrels of production. We decided, as we started growing fast, that we really wanted to focus on making sure we were doing a stellar job in every market we were in, and we wanted to make sure we weren't spending time on markets that really weren't relevant to our business and we didn't think we could be competitive in. So we started methodically pulling out of territories and really focus where we thought we could go deep and really manage the business well and get to the point, which we're almost there, where we had direct representation in every market. So you can see this is what our footprint looks like now, and we're doing about 8 times the volume as in the prior slide. Current focus for us, we have been blessed with a lot of growth, which is great, and there's a lot of good that's come of that, but we are not focused on volume just to say we did 50,000 barrels this year and we're going to do 70,000 next year. We're not driven by volume. We're motivated by and inspired by our core values. That's not to say we're not trying to maximize sales in our current footprint. We want to take advantage of opportunity there, but we really want to work on managing that, the business well. So right now, this is kind of my life. I'm really focusing on these things and trying to drive these things home at the company. HR, we just hired a full-time HR employee, which has been a huge improvement at the brewery. Everyone's loved it. It's made a huge difference. We're really working on making sure Allagash is a great place to work. Sales and distribution, we're trying to manage every one of our wholesalers now. We've gone from 44 to 22 wholesalers. We want to make sure we are at the top of their list in terms of breweries that they do business with, and that we're hitting on all cylinders with every one of our wholesalers, doing annual planning meetings, semi-annual follow-up. We're really investing a lot in environmental sustainability. Internal planning and process, we're still doing things in a lot of ways the same way we did 7 or 8 years ago, which is reactive, not looking at data, honestly not super organized and kind of scrambling a lot. We're really trying to organize our process at the brewery, look at what data that's available to us from our wholesalers in making sure we run our business accordingly in a much more organized, methodical fashion. We continue to invest in quality control. We're doing a better job than ever in that front. And also, as I mentioned, brewer visitor experience. It's very important to us, and we're always trying to make sure when people visit our brewery, they're really having a great interactive experience. And it's nice, too, because there's continued change at the brewery, and hopefully people feel like they can come back each year when they come on vacation in Maine, and they're going to see something new or have a new experience or try a new beer. So I know I went a little over the 20 minutes, sorry, but I just wanted to also say we're right out on Riverside Street in Portland where we've always been, and definitely come out and visit us. We get people out there all the time from the local community, and they kind of say, wow, I never knew you guys were out here. So come visit us. It's a great tour. We do tours 6 days a week. Come out and visit. So thanks.